Tell me your name.
My name's Corey Turner. I live in Turnerville, Wyoming.
So what got you into bees, Corey?
My cousin, he's a beekeeper, and I went down and visited him one day, and he says, Corey, come out to my bees and let's look into them, tear them apart, get inside of it. And I wasn't really thrilled about it, but then he suited me up and we went out, and I found it really interesting. I spent an hour out there with him, and he told me, he says, why don't you start hauling, I can haul some bees up to you and take care of them. And I thought that'd be all right. And then after a while I thought, well, why should I be taking care of somebody else's bees when I could do my own? Mm-hmm. So that's the way I started.
How long you been doing it?
About 4 years now.
Okay. Tell them about how you're allergic to bees.
I am severely allergic to bees. But you'll be surprised how many beekeepers are allergic to bees. But the first time I got stung, it wasn't too bad. I've always swole up pretty good when I get stung. But then after I got bees and I got stung more, there's one year I got stung like 4 times in 1 week, and it put me in the hospital, and then it only took 1 bee after that.
Tell them about how you just got stung recently, your most recent sting.
My most recent sting was from a dead bee. I was cleaning out a dead hive, and the bee fell onto my arm and got caught right there, and that was a week ago, and the swelling is still there. It's a little hard, but even a dead bee hurts.
All right, well, tell us how you I guess give us some basics, like when people order bees, what do they come in?
If you order bees, you can order them. The most popular weight, they order it in weight, and the most popular is 2 pounds, 2 to 3 pounds, and they come in a box like this. And 2 pounds of bees is about 10 to 15,000 bees. And there's a can, like a soup can, that fits inside of here, and they pop holes in the bottom of it, and it's full of sugar water. And then there's a wooden cap that goes over the top of it. And while it's in transportation, the bees are all gathered up, eating out of this can like a swarm.
Like 10 or 15,000 in that one box?
In this one box, yep. It's
just in a ball of bees.
Just in a ball, yep. It's just a ball of bees, and they're all around that can, and they're feeding out the can. And the queen, each hive has only one queen, and the queen it's a new queen to these bees, so these bees don't know this queen. So the queen is always in a little box like this, and there's a queen in it and a plug in this side, and it's hanging in this box. If the queen was let free in here, the bees would kill her because they don't think she's their queen. So while they're being transported and getting used to the pheromones of this queen, they'll start accepting her. So then when you get this delivered,
so that's just hanging in there with the bee in it.
Yep, just hanging here.
Are they swarmed around it at
all? A little bit. Some of them do, because once they start accepting her, they want to feed her. A queen bee is, I'm not lazy, but a queen bee does not eat. A queen bee is fed. The only job a queen bee has is to lay eggs, and that's it. Anyway, you bring her home, you take these, you open it up, you take your queen bee, and you replace the cork with a little marshmallow. You shove the marshmallow in there, and you take your bees in an empty hive, kind of like this one. Now the easiest way to do it is just set the box in there and let the bees come out on their own. Sometimes you see people shake it, and that just makes the bees mad. The easiest way for me, I found, is just set the box in here, take the queen with the marshmallow plug, and set the queen over in here somewhere like this. And she's over here. Now the queen will send out pheromones throughout the hive, and it will take the bees about 3 days 2 to 3 days to eat that marshmallow.
So you set that box in
You
there,
set in here.
and they'll eat that marshmallow plug.
Yep. You put the lid back on. They'll eat the marshmallow plug, and then they release the queen.
And then they'll just gather around her.
By that time, the queen is usually accepted. So after you set it all up, about 3 days later, you come out. 3-4 days later, you come out and you hunt for the queen to make sure she's in there. And then if she is and she's laying eggs, everybody's happy. But that's the first thing you do. Then there's this right here is a standard bee box. This one had 10 what they call frames. Frame. This is what a frame a new one begins. It's so that they can just, gives them a little kind of a head start. It's covered in beeswax, and it has the smell of beeswax, and it's a little sticky, but the bees love it. I mean, it just draws them to, you put it in there, and you got empty ones in there like that. And then the bees will start building honeycomb, or not honeycomb, beeswax, the comb. Let's show you a good example. Okay, this is one that they're building up on.
Yeah, so you can see they've built it up compared to, where's that clean
This one right here.
So this one
That is brand new.
It has texture to the surface, but it's the walls are really low. And this one they've built up the walls so they're kind of high.
Yeah, they'll build them out as high as the boards go.
And that's just beeswax.
That is just beeswax.
And it's perfectly.
Yeah.
what is
Oh
that?
yeah.
We're showing our ignorance. The kids are probably like,
It's a
I know
honeycomb.
what shape that is.
What shape is it? Honeycomb shape.
Hexagon or,
Yeah,
or
something
whatever
like
it
that.
is.
But anyway, yeah, this is just kind of help them to get going. Other beekeepers don't put this in, and they'll start building cone up here on both
So
sides.
the frame's empty?
So the frame, this is empty, and then they'll build up
The comb themselves.
Yep. And a lot of times you'll see them cut the whole honeycomb out and bottle it and sell it that way.
Can you don't, that's not something that's edible, that starter comb?
No, the flat, that's just plastic.
So you have to scrape it off or whatever.
Yeah, but let me see, I have another example here. Then once they get those, start building them up, they start putting pollen in them. Okay, these are, I just scraped this off, and this is flat, but all the brown is the pollen. This is where they put pollen. You see the different colors.
Yeah.
And this is what you like to see as a beekeeper. When you get them all full like this, the pollen's in the center, and then they place the honey out here.
Oh, okay.
And then, that's the way they're supposed to.
So they build up those little compartments and fill it with pollen in the middle?
Yep. And honey, depending. But the first thing is in the spring is pollen. They'll bring in lots of pollen.
What do they use the pollen for?
To feed the new bees.
Feed the new ones.
Yep.
The eggs that are being laid.
Yep. And you have what they call brood boxes. There'll be 2 boxes like this in a typical hive, this size, the bottom and another one, and those are called brood boxes. And those are the boxes that you want the queen to lay the eggs, and that's where you want the new colony to grow. And then on top of that is called honey supers, and that's what you get to harvest.
Okay.
It's kind of their surplus.
So the queen's, once she's accepted, she just starts laying eggs.
That's all she does is lay eggs. She will lay eggs up to 1,200 a day.
Wow.
She will actually lay more eggs weight-wise than she weighs.
Each day.
It's crazy. It is nuts.
So she lays, what, tens of thousands of eggs over the course of a summer?
Yeah. queen bee will live 2 to 3 years, and if you're lucky, you can get her to live for 5. And her lifetime, they figure at least 2 million eggs
Really?
that she will lay. And there's only one queen per hive, and that's all she does is lay eggs. And when she lays an egg, she lays it in one of these honeycombs, and
Just a single egg?
just a single egg, and it's standing up in the air. It looks like a little teeny piece of rice. And the worker bee, the bees that are assigned to feed will come in and feed the egg pollen and honey, and then in 3 days a larva will hatch. And then after a while it will start growing a little bigger, and then the bees will seal the top of the honeycomb with a light layer of wax, and that larva will grow into a full-grown bee in 26 days. It's from egg to full-grown bee, 26 days. So in the spring, when she starts laying eggs again, after a month, you can start having 1,000 new bees a day starting to grow. That's why a beehive just explodes.
Really?
And that's what you like. That's a healthy hive.
So they fill up these racks pretty quick with eggs.
Yes, it's amazing. And some of them will be filled with honey, just like along the top like this. And then the rest will be filled with pollen. And then some frames will be just mostly eggs. Eggs and what they call cap larvae.
And that's kind of what you said, there's a lower level box where all that egg and pollen and larvae are happening.
Yes, the first 2 boxes are called brood boxes. So there's 2 of them this size.
And then a third.
And then on top, any third one would be strictly honey.
Is that as high as they go? About 3?
No, I have one out here. I'll show you, which I have 2 brood boxes on and 3 honey supers right now.
Right on the stack.
Yeah, when your box gets 80% full, then it's time to put another box on, and you can keep going, or you can take it off and you can harvest it. Either one. I just usually like to only harvest once, because then you have to clean everything up twice, and that's not fun.
Just at the end of the summer.
Yep. And right here, I'll show you. Here is some. That's wax.
So that's what the bees build.
That's what the bees build up.
On top of those frames.
Yep, exactly.
That we were showing you.
Yeah, and they put pollen, honey, or eggs in it. So they actually have 3 different functions, depending on what they need.
This kind of got squished a bunch, but when it's in here on the racks, it holds those perfect.
Yeah, this is actually an old
shapes.
Old one, hard. It's not
soft.
It's not soft. And now right here, I'll show you. Might be on the back of this one. See, this beehive I know didn't die because of starvation. Because here's honey. That is capped honey, and that's not capped, but they must have been starting eating it. But you can.
There's a bee right there.
Yeah, it's weird. They just die with their
stinger in them.
Yeah.
There's another one. Yeah, so these caps have honey in them.
Yep, these are full of honey, and this is what they'll eat during the winter. When winter starts to come, they'll start to stack honey inside of these 2 boxes. They'll quit laying eggs and start honey. And for a a hive to survive the winter, they need at least 75 pounds of honey.
So once the flowers come out, they start getting out of the hives and going and gathering pollen all summer long, and they're just working and going crazy.
Yep.
You harvest honey in the late fall there.
I harvest honey in fact, I'll be doing it in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
So come back up.
We'll have to come back and do another video of that.
And then when I take that, they'll still, until there's nothing, no flowers, or a lot of them, they get honey out of the balsam fir trees, pine trees. They get a lot of honey from the pine cones.
Really?
Yep. But then I just, we'll have to show you when we spin it. So my spinner's right behind you. But you just take the caps off and see the honey in them.
Oh yeah.
And then you can spin it.
Can you eat it raw?
Yeah, no, this is great to eat right now. This is
get some.
And the beeswax is
really good.
Beeswax is good to eat too. You chew it like gum.
Yeah, it's like a waxy little piece of gum.
Yep.
That's really good.
You can sell, when I scrape what they call burr comb, sometimes the bees will build burr comb out where they're not supposed to, and they'll be full of honey, and you just scrape all that off, put it in a bottle, fill it full, rest it with honey, and people love that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Bonnie's dad used to take it like on hot toast and just spread it on his hot toast like butter. And you have your butter and your...
Yeah, it sounds good.
But anyway, that's the basic box of honey.
And there's one queen per box?
One queen per box, per hive.
Per the stack.
Per the stack, yep.
But you might have multiple stacks with multiple queens?
Yep. And yes, and you wonder how a bee knows which hive it's supposed to go to. Every queen smells different. Every hive smells different. This hive right here it stinks, I think.
Yeah, it does. It has kind of, I thought it would be a sweet smell, but it's almost like a barnyard smell.
Yeah, it's a pungent.
Yeah.
But it's weird. But every hive you open, there's a different smell to it. And that's because of the queen in it.
The pheromones she
pheromones,
gives off.
Yep. And that gets on all of the bees. And when a bee's first born, or hatched, I guess, its job is a cleaning job. It cleans the hive. It cleans out the cell that it was just come out of, and it goes around and cleans out all the cells. Beehive, this don't look very clean, and this one's not clean.
Yeah.
But a beehive inside it's very clean, very sanitary. A bee does not use the bathroom in the hive. A bee in the winter, they hold it, and on a day when it reaches 40 degrees, the bees will come out. They do what they call a cleansing flight. In a cleansing flight, you'll go out and you'll see bees flying around all over the snow, and an hour later, the snow is just brown, and they're just
clean.
They're just crapping all over, and it is a mess. But that's how they do it. They don't do any of that in the hive.
That's interesting.
And they're dead. They drag their dead out of the hive and just drop them on the ground. A bee, but that's the first thing that a bee does as a cleaner. The second job, they kind of graduate. The older they get, they graduate. And the second job is to feed the queen, feed the larva, feed the eggs. And their last job is foraging, going out forage for honey. And the bees' life expectancy in the summer is about 5 weeks, is all they live.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So a bee is born, works 5 weeks, dies, and another one takes its place?
Yep. There's 1,000 new bees every day, but you're probably losing that many too.
Huh.
You know,
I never knew that.
It's
they don't live through the year, but the queen keeps living.
The queen does. The queen does because she just lays eggs and they feed her. But the other bees actually work themselves to death. It's just busy as a bee, you know.
Even if you weren't harvesting their honey, they'd just be working themselves to death.
Yeah, they work themselves. Then they become what they call honey bound. They have put honey in everything that they can put honey into, and then you have trouble.
Because then they might go looking for a new home or something.
They get too crowded. There's not enough room for them. Then they'll swarm.
So harvesting is necessary.
Yeah, it is. But you just gotta know how much to take and how much to leave. Plus, I do emergency feeding in about February, early February. You can go out and feed them honey supplements or actual honey. And then in the early spring, I feed them sugar water when they're starting to get active, but there isn't anything in bloom.
So they kind of go dormant during the winter?
Yeah, they don't go dormant, but they slow down. And when they slow down, they live longer.
Are they still flying out to gather?
No, they stay in the hive unless it's really warm outside, and then they'll fly out to do just a cleansing flight, and then they'll come back.
Okay.
But they got to keep the queen. The queen has to be about 80, 85 degrees all the time, warm. So in the winter, they're all huddled up around the queen, keeping her warm. And if you go up the beehive and listen to it really close, you can hear them buzzing. But they're just moving their wings, and actually what they're doing is creating body heat. They kind of like how we shiver. That's what they do to produce heat.
Keep her warm.
And they'll actually melt the snow on top of a beehive, the heat coming out of it. So you can actually just look at a beehive in the winter and say, yeah, they're still alive. But if there's a lot of snow on top of it, you might want to go check them.
Okay, what's the next thing you're going to show us? Out at the hive, or?
Yeah, let's go out and look at some live bees.
Okay. I'm going to wrap up this first section of the field trip because it took 20 minutes. That's awesome, because next week we'll come back and see what more he has to show us. And hopefully in a few weeks we'll come back and maybe do a third field trip where we see him actually harvesting the honey. So see you next week.